I went and got my wife in the house and said, "You got to come listen to something." And she was in tears listening to his voice on a song that she knew he hadn't ever performed before. Met Randy in 1985. I was working with Keith Stegall, and he and I were working on a record that Keith was the artist on for Epic. And he came to the studio one day and had a cassette and said, "I want you to hear something." And I put it in and listened to about 20 seconds and stopped it and said, "Who's that?" And he said, "It was a catfish cook out at the Nashville Palace." And so 2 days later, I was at the Nashville Palace watching the catfish cook sing live. And that was Randy.
He can cook one of them fat catfish, huh?
Cooked, cleaned, bussed. I mean, he did everything. And then, threw on an oversized sport coat and came out and sang some tunes, then went back into the kitchen.
And you worked with him since 1985.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does anybody know his voice like you do?
I think his fans do. But if you mean technically, probably not. I mean,
probably not what?
Technically, I'm probably the guy that knows his voice better than anybody else. But he's made so many records and has so many fans still that they know what they're listening to.
What is it about? You're a sound engineer. Explain to us what it is you're hearing in that voice.
Well, it's really emotion. It's really what it is, and it's certain singers have a kind of naturally gifted quality, and Randy has one of those gifted qualities that as soon as I hear him start to sing, I'm drawn toward what it is he's singing about and just the way he's doing it. Not everybody has that. Some singers are powerful and they tend to push you back a little bit, but he's always, to me, pulling me in. And so that's the thing I'm sort of consciously, unconsciously making sure we're delivering.
How would you describe his voice?
It's just naturally soulful. He has a naturally soulful quality. He never seems to be yelling when he sings. He's a singer. And when he sings, for me, it's like I hear all of his influences, but I also hear his uniqueness. So you hear a little bit of Lefty Frizzell, you hear a little bit of Merle Haggard, you hear a little bit of George Jones. You hear all those guys sort of as being part of the conversation that's going on, but then it's uniquely Randy's voice.
How many records have you produced for him?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Too many to count.
I really don't know. 20 plus, I don't know.
What was it about his talent that you knew instantly?
Well, it wasn't so. I mean, his voice, the quality of his voice was apparent immediately, like within 20 seconds. It's like, okay, this guy's the real deal. But the thing that was the most attractive thing to me about him was how clear he was about who he was. And he never wavered from what he wanted to do, which was stand on a stage and sing great country music to people that would appreciate that. And he really wasn't as concerned with being successful as he was at being faithful to that particular approach. And I think that's been true throughout his whole career. He was not a guy that chased trends. He just wanted to make the best country music he could make, and I was lucky enough to get to help him try to do that.
Where were you when you heard about the stroke?
I was in Nashville, and it was the stroke actually, I was in the hospital in Texas when we found out he'd had a stroke. What I heard about was that he was in critical condition and had had a heart attack or some kind of heart issue. And so I flew to Dallas, and I was there. I think that happened on a Sunday night, and I think I was there on a Tuesday. And then Wednesday is when the stroke news was delivered, which was devastating.
And not to sound morbid here, but the world was essentially on Randy Travis' death watch, sadly.
Oh yeah. I mean, I didn't have a lot of hope that he would survive that. I mean, not very many people do.
Do you remember what you were feeling in that moment?
Yeah, I was really feeling a combination of things, mostly, deep sadness for the circumstances, but also just projecting what Randy's life might be like, if he had really had as debilitating a stroke as it sounded like he'd had, and whether, then sort of like, well, would he even want to be around under these circumstances? And fortunately, I didn't have to make any decisions about any of that, but I was concerned about all of it. And it took a while to come to terms with the reality of his situation, of his condition.
And another reality is that he'll never sing again.
That's correct. Yeah, not the way we've heard him sing. That's for sure.
Did you think you'd be here 10 years later, still producing a Randy Travis album, or working on one?
I certainly didn't think I'd be here working on new Randy Travis music. There's a lot of stuff that's still sort of in the can that we're able to dust off and work on a little bit. But the idea of starting over again on a brand new creative venture with his voice and with him was not something I ever imagined would be happening.
Do you know what AI means?
I'm sorry?
Do you know what AI means?
Do I know what it means, or?
You know what it stands for?
Well, artificial intelligence? Yeah, of course.
I think Mary was the one who was saying, we don't call it artificial.
Uh-huh.
We call it artistic.
That's great. Yeah.
Have you ever used AI?
Well, not in this way. I mean, I think everybody does. If you've got an iPhone or something, there's, that sort of stuff is part of it. But I don't think of it in those terms. I just think of it as sort of, helpers in one way or another.
It is, AI is, for our understanding, is probably counter to everything that you've been about since the 70s, I'm sure.
I don't think about it like that.
Yeah.
I don't think about it as being counter in any way. I just think of it as being a new tool, and certainly the work I've done since I've started into this business, there have always been new technologies that have popped up that go through all the same stages of it. Oh, that's not going to work. To oh, maybe that'll work. To boy, that really works. To I don't think I can live without that. And it seems to that process seems to happen all the time.
When the concept of AI and Randy Travis first come to you, what's your first reaction?
Well, Chris Lacey at Warner Brothers called me in July of '23 and asked me what would I think if we could give Randy his voice back. And I thought, well, what are you talking about? And when she said AI, my immediate response was, that's creepy. That's going to be weird.
That's your initial reaction?
My initial reaction was that's just like any new technology. That's not going to work, or that's just weird. I don't know about that. But my next question is what do Randy and Mary think about that? And when she said, well, they really want to give it a try, then my opinion was moot. It didn't matter. It's like, well, I'm going to do whatever I can to help embrace that and see if there's some way that this might work.
Did you feel the country world was missing we've been missing his music for more than 10 years now. Did you feel that that vacuous space that needed to be filled there?
No, I didn't think about it in terms of the country world. It was very selfish. I missed being in the studio with him and getting to have the adventure of making music with him, and having done it for so long. I mean, it was never work. It was never work. He always knew who he was and what he was about. He always came to the studio totally prepared. We went
To
through.
go from that, to
I'm
go
sorry.
from working with him every day
Yeah,
and putting out albums and and having fun and not really working, to nothing.
yeah. Well, it's it's like having your best sandbox buddy move away, and he's no longer in the neighborhood, or he's no longer there. And I mean, every year we would look forward. I certainly would look forward to another project with Randy and what we were going to do, and a way to keep ourselves interested in it, and feeling like we were true to what he was about, and at the same time not just retreading old territory, looking for new ways, new songs, new ways to do that. So that was a big miss.
When Warner Brothers comes to you and says, "Bring Randy Travis's voice, give him a voice back," is that what they said?
Yeah, it was, Chris's line was, what if we can give Randy his voice back?
And that intrinsically piques your interest.
Well, initially, it was a very sort of Frankenstein-y kind of idea. I thought, oh boy, that's going to be, that's going to be weird. But I had no experience with how that would work, and how it would sound, how it would feel. I had no experience about that. So it was just an idea at that point. There was nothing to hang my hat on there.
You have every tool you could possibly need to make sound in here.
Mm-hmm.
You're a sound engineer.
Mm-hmm.
You have been listening to music, making music, producing music, and now someone brings up AI.
Mm-hmm.
And your immediate reaction is, you don't have that tool in here? Or
My immediate reaction to AI was, it's new and I don't know how I'm going to respond to it. I don't know how I'm going to relate to it. So there was no way for me to go, oh yeah, that's a great idea, because I didn't have any experience of it. So I didn't know.
How have you related to it?
That's a really good question. It's seductive, but it isn't a slam dunk easy to make it feel really authentic, and to make it feel, especially Randy's case, with a voice that's so recognizable and so unique in so many ways. To have it come out of a pair of speakers and go, oh yeah, okay, that's really working. It's not easy to make that happen. We got very lucky with James Dupre and where that came from. We're working on some other songs now that are more of a challenge.
on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned were you that this was not going to work?
Well, I was. That's a tough question, because until I heard his voice come out of the speakers the very first time, there was nothing that told me it was going to work. So I was pretty well convinced. Like, oh, I just didn't know what to expect. And when I did the first conversion with Randy's model, and heard his voice come out of the speakers for the first time, it was freaky how good it was right away. It's really good.
Emotional?
Very emotional.
How did
I
you
went,
do?
I went and got my wife in the house and said, you got to come listen to something. And she was in tears listening to his voice on a song that she knew he hadn't ever performed before.
How were you?
I'm sorry?
How were you feeling?
Very emotional about it. I mean, on the one hand, I thought, wow, this really could work. And on the other hand, to quote a Randy Travis song, it wasn't perfect. And I knew that from what had originally come out of the speakers to what I felt like we would need in order for it for those fans of his to accept his voice in that setting. It was going to take some work. We were going to have to massage some little things, look at this. And so it took a while. It took a couple of weeks of working and trying things to get it to settle into something that really felt authentic.
Okay, so this is going to be the tough part. Can you explain the science behind what is happening here with this AI?
Let me think about that. You mean, as far as the science in terms of what's going on with AI, there's only a certain amount of it that I understand because I'm not a technician in that regard. I'm not somebody that's going to run those programs. But Randy's voice model was created from a combination of 45 separate vocal tracks, just his lead vocals from songs that he had sung from the beginning of his career, from 1985 all the way up until at least 2010, 2012, right before the stroke. So I had songs that I was able to extract just his lead vocal from, and I sent those to some folks in England who actually built the model.
You provided all those tracks?
I did.
All 40? You needed 45?
They asked for as many as I had, and I had 45.
And every range possible,
Yes.
every age, right? From the time he was...
From 1985 to 2010 or 11 or so. So yeah, I mean, it was the whole scope of his recorded career.
And what is that, and then you combine that with what?
Well, that was sent to the folks that actually built the model. And that's where my expertise stops. And, you know, we should talk to them,
Yeah.
because there's a program I'm sure that they're running the voice through that analyzes it in some way that then creates some sort of model that then I can put a different singer's voice into, and it spits Randy's voice out.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
What you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad I don't know how they do that. I don't want that information in here. All I want to do is listen to it and go, is that convincing or not?
Why James?
You know, that was just luck. I had a recording that we had done actually for Warner Brothers, and Chris Lacey was part of that process in 2011.
Okay.
And we recorded the song in 2011, and Jerry Douglas and I, the great dobro player Jerry Douglas, and I produced James Dupre together in 2011. And I had the multi-track here, and as often happens in the business, that record never came out. So Warner Brothers owned it, and I happened to have the multi-track here. And after I got the model, the folks from England called me and said, we have this ready for you, we want you to try it out. I sat on it for 2 weeks without doing anything with it, because I just didn't know quite what to do with it. I was trying to think of, do I have something in the can here at the house that I could try it out on? And finally I just sort of thinking about that song and James's vocal. And one of the reasons I loved James was because he reminded me of Randy. He had a kind of naturally soulful voice, an easy delivery, a really good singer.
Did it require someone with a soulful voice? Like he's really smooth, and he's like Randy Travis smooth. Like, is that what you were looking for? Is that?
You know, it was so. I don't know how to explain it. It was the thing that kept popping up in my brain, and I finally thought, well, let me just try this and see what this sounds like. And, you know, it worked. It worked really well. And it took a while to get it perfected, but it really worked.
What is it about James Dupre's voice that you like that at least remotely is close to Randy's?
Well, it's smooth. He doesn't yell. He sings. He has an easy delivery. There's a lot of sort of similarities in phrasing choices, just the way James would phrase a line. Randy's a very old soul. He was an old soul the first day I worked with him, when he was 25 years old. And it was obvious that when he stood in front of a microphone, he wasn't going through a lot of mental gymnastics. He just had a natural delivery and a natural way of understanding how to sing a song. And so, vocals with him was never like a chore. It was always pretty fun and pretty easy. And when he understood the song and when he knew how he wanted to sing it, there wasn't very much work for me to do.
How would you analogize it?
Well, I'm not sure I know even now exactly how to do that. I'm not sure.
Which is exactly James's answer. I think everyone's kind of like...
Well, James, he said to us in the interview, he said, I hear the way I hear a little bit of me in there, the way I sing it.
Yeah.
The way I sing that song.
Yeah.
But then I hear then it's Randy.
It's Randy's everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's Randy's effect.
One of the weird things about it is that James's vocal was really good. And Jerry Douglas and I had worked on that, and we gotten the vocal of James just the way we wanted it, and I had no criticism for his vocal at all. When Randy's voice came out of the speakers with James's donor vocal, there were things about it that didn't work. And it's like, Randy's character, and that particular delivery needs a little massaging. The phrase might be a little not quite behind as much as it needs to be. And it was weird too, because the pitch, James has really good pitch, and his voice was in tune, but there were certain words that no longer sounded in tune.
Playing devil's advocate, who would know?
Me. And if I know, it's got to get...
Then the fans know, I'm sure.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the beautiful thing about it, as far as I'm concerned. I think the fans, if this didn't work, I think the fans would not respond positively, because I don't think they intellectually would understand why it's not working. They would emotionally know it's not working. And they might not even know why, but it would, instead of being, like I said earlier, instead of being pulled into his voice, they'd be pushed back from it somehow. And they wouldn't necessarily know why.
Were you afraid to fail on this?
Was I afraid of that?
Were you afraid to fail on this?
No, I wasn't afraid to fail at all. I'm never afraid to fail. Well, if you're afraid to fail, this is the wrong business.
But this is pressure. This is...
It's pressure up to a point, but once the vocal is right, there's no long... then the pressure's over. Job's done, and now we can proceed and just make the record and get the record to surround his voice the way we need it to surround it, and then we're done.
Was it kind of affirmation in Pensacola when you saw the response?
Yeah, that was really emotional. In that show in Pensacola, because that's the first time I've ever seen him do that. I've not seen that show before, and I've not seen James and the band perform the song. And James sings the first verse, and then he sort of motions over to Randy, and then Randy takes it from there. And 1,600 people stood up. It was like they stood up. I just thought, well, there you go. That's inviting them in. Yeah, that was really emotional. I was.
What were you feeling?
I'm sorry.
What were you feeling?
Gosh, I just felt. Gosh, I'm not sure if I know exactly how to say that. If I could tell you what I was feeling, it wouldn't be real, because there aren't really any words for that. It was just an overwhelming moment for me. It really was. The first time I saw that happen was around 1986 or so Fanfare in Nashville, and Randy had, on the other hand, had come out and died, and it had died in the 60s in the charts, so not everybody had heard that song. And he's playing Fanfare at the grandstand in Nashville, and there's about 25,000 people in the stands because it's a Warner Brothers show, and so there's a lot of artists, but nobody really knows Randy. And he starts playing the acoustic guitar, and he sings On One Hand, and 25,000 people stood up. I've got it. I've seen the video of it. They stood up, and it was like, I looked around, I thought somebody dropped the American flag behind him or something. And it's that kind of thing. It's like they've recognized somebody that they have known their whole lives, and he's come back. And so there was some of that again. You know, it's like, here's this voice that we know, and it's back.
Why is it comforting to say his voice is back?
Well, for me, it does open up the possibility that he and I can have some fun playing around in the recording studio again. It's going to be different. It's not going to be quite the same experience, but a lot of it is going to be the same. And that part of it's going to be good enough, I think.
How much do you communicate with him, or how much does he communicate with you that, yes, this is a song that I would put out, and this sounds like me?
That's really not hard to read, because he's never been hard to read about that. It's always been, yep, nope, and it's not like some big intellectual discussion. It's either this is working or it's not working, and so it's not. This is not very different from the kind of a process we used the whole time we were making records.
Has he told you when you were playing this song? Has he told you when something hasn't worked?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah. yeah. I mean, he has a vein that goes through his forehead, and I've seen it since 1985. And you don't want to see the vein. It's like this thing that, you know, and it means that this is not good. I've seen that face before, and it's like, oh, okay, sorry. What do we need to do? And he'll frown and stuff. And he would do that, you know, when he could speak. Randy was never a speech maker. I mean, it was always, we could emotional kind of response to things, facial things. You know, I could look and could see he was thinking about it, or it wasn't working for him. And when it was, everything was easy.
Did you read his face the moment? My guess is you were fixated on him when he's listening to that song the first time.
Well, I didn't get to see him the first time he heard it. I sent it to him over an email, because we started working on the song in November, and it was, I think it was February or January, sometime in January. It was a couple of months after I had started working on it before he ever heard it. So the first time I heard a response to the song was over the phone, and I could tell he was very happy. Mary was a basket case. She was just really emotional about it. But they didn't know what song we were working on. They didn't know where we were at in the process. I don't think they knew anything about it until Chris Lacey and I both said, okay, I think now it's ready to play for them and see what they think. And then Mary, I'd asked Mary too, I said, well, what are you listening to this on? And she said, I'm listening to it on our laptop speakers. And I went, okay, I'm sending you something you need to, and so I sent them a pair of really good headphones that showed up 2 days later, and I said, listen to it on these, and then let's talk again. And so I saw a video that she has of Randy listening to it with the headphones on, and the look on his face and the amount of joy that he was expressing in the whole process, and just saying, good, and I could tell where he was in the song. In certain moments of the song, he just lit up, and just seeing how much joy that brought him made everything worth it. Everything worth it to me.
No vein in the forehead on that.
Yeah.
No what?
No vein in the forehead.
No vein, just joy. I mean, he literally was glowing It just made him so happy to hear that.
Last couple of questions here.
Yeah.
People always talk about, yeah, I really tough. So when people tell you, you're a longtime producer, when people tell you there is no space for AI in our music, we want to be authentic, we want to be original, there's no space for AI, what do you tell them?
Well, you know, I think it's just like anything else that we've gotten used to that technology has brought to us. There's always an initial resistance to things, and there's always a good and a bad way to use it. You know, it's like when silent pictures went to sound. There was a great resistance to that. Nobody thought that anybody would want to see somebody talking on a movie screen. Well, that's changed, you know, and now we have all kinds of CG kind of stuff going on films, stuff that's just not possible, but we find it entertaining, interesting, emotionally moving. I think art has an awful lot of ways to express itself, and this is going to be another one.